Okay, so here's our agenda. These are the things that we're going to be talking about. Leaving your legacy, end of service benefits, resources for life after VISTA, and then the Q&A. So leaving behind your legacy, this is really important because for all of you, either there's going to be another VISTA coming into your organization to continue your work, or staff are going to pick up your work, or volunteers are going to pick up your work, but you all know that the point of a VISTA project is that it will be continued in the future. So there's a couple ways to ease that transition and to help with that. What I did at the end of my last service year was organize all of my files really meticulously in the share drive for the organization so that someone coming from the outside would have a pretty clear idea of what goes where in that online resource. And then I also made a hard copy of an end of service binder. And all of these, the orange text that you see in this PowerPoint are active links. So I'm going to send this out afterwards. And that one there, which says end of service binder, is a link to an example of a binder. But what mine had was, I wrote a welcome letter to the next VISTA because I did have another VISTA coming in after me. And then I sort of laid out some of the key players, introduced some people's names and titles and roles. If you have volunteers that you're working with that the next person or person, sorry about that, could find useful in the future, then, give their names, their contact information. I also included the resources that I'd created and tips and tricks on how to use those things, and pointed people where to go for whatever information they needed. So this is really just a way to pull everything together in one place so that the next VISTA or a staff member that's picking up this work has a one-stop shop for everything related to your VISTA project. Another important piece is a transition plan. So this is really the responsibility of your supervisor, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be involved as VISTA members. So what this is how exactly are things going to be continued in the future or transitioned to other people? So you have all of this great information, resources you've created, relationships you've created. How and when are those things going to be transferred either to the next VISTA, to staff members, to volunteers? What is that going to look like? So that's something that you should be speaking to your supervisor about in the next couple of weeks, and making sure that, because you are the experts on your projects, right? You guys know where everything is, how it should be used. So make sure that you're not only, leaving those resources prepared for the next person, but communicating with your supervisor and other staff about how those things should be used, when, and why. And then the last piece here is staff and resident training. So you all have probably, or some of you, those of you who need to, have probably already been doing this. But for some of you, there's going to be things that you're passing off to staff, volunteers, residents, that they're going to need some training on. So make sure you're blocking out that time to get those people up to speed. So this next slide is end of service benefits. And all of these links are active, like I said. So first there's the education award. You can see the amount there. Some things to know about the education award are that it's active for 7 years. So if you're not planning on using it right away, like I know for me, I'm considering grad school at some point, but not immediately. So it's really important for me to keep in mind when those expiration dates are, so that I believe that you can request an extension if it comes to that through the National Service Hotline. So just make sure that you're keeping in mind those deadlines if you're not using your award immediately. Another really important thing to know is that you are taxed on the full amount of your Ed Award the year that you use it when you pay your taxes or when you do your taxes. So it's going to be all at once, and it ends up being quite a chunk of change. I have not used my awards yet, so I couldn't tell you how much, but I know that some VISTA members have, for example, used their first Ed Award during a second year of service, and it's taken quite a financial toll. So just make sure that you're planning for that That might mean that you don't want to use it all at once in 1 year. If you're using it for loans or school, that might mean that you need to make sure you have some savings to pay for that at the end of the year. So just keep that in mind. The next award is the end of service stipend. So this is if you're not choosing the education award. Tax is going to be taken out of that when it's deposited to you, so you don't have to worry about that. And it comes with your last 2 living allowance payments. So for some of you, you may be getting paid after your end date. So don't worry if you don't see your entire end of service stipend before your last day. Because of the way the pay periods work, you might be getting your last paycheck after you're done. So that'll come with the last 2 direct deposits from CNCS. Non-competitive eligibility. So this is valid for 1 year after service ends. Selena, I see your question. I'll answer that in a little bit. So basically what this does is, in a federal hiring process, non-competitive eligibility puts you in a position to not have to compete with the general public. So if you're qualified for a government job that you're applying for and you have non-competitive eligibility, then that just gives you a leg up in the hiring process. So you're not being compared with everyone else. You're only being compared really with other people with non-competitive eligibility. And that includes, I believe, veterans and Peace Corps, VISTA. And like I said, that lasts for 1 year. Close of service travel. So if you relocated for service, that means you were moving over 50 miles by VISTA's definition. VISTA will pay for you to go back to your home of record. So what you need to do to make this request happen is go into your My AmeriCorps portal. And there is, on the left side where all the tabs are, there is one that says travel request profile, I believe. You're going to create a travel request for your relocation to your home of record. And then the VMSU is going to send you a form that you actually have to print, sign, and send back by postal mail. So if you are relocating, do this now, because postal mail can take a while, and you want to make sure that this is all wrapped up by your last day. And that comes as a separate direct deposit at the end of your service. So it's not included with your living allowance. So Selena asked the question, where do we go to get the education award? So I can actually, well, it's in your My AmeriCorps portal. So when you log into your My AmeriCorps portal, after your last day of service, there's going to be a tab on the left that says My Education Award. That's where you create a request to use your award. But I'm going to, after I go through these slides, pull up some web pages with some resources on where you can get better information. Okay, life after VISTA resources. So there's a few things here. The AmeriCorps Alumni Network is basically a one-stop shop for connecting with other alumni. There's a job board. They do online career fairs. There's resources on the Ed Award. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Vista Campus has a job board as well. And Vista Campus in general is always going to be a really great resource. USA Jobs is where you go to search for government jobs if you want to use that non-competitive eligibility. And I'll show you that too. And then Vista Campus has a whole bunch of webinars on end of service. So I'm going to go ahead and take questions right now, and then I'm going to go and just show you what some of these resources look like, in my browser. So if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat box. And if you can't think of anything now, but you do later, you can always call me, shoot me an email. I just set my last day with NeighborWorks earlier this week, and I'm going to be around until December 20th. So even after you're done with your service, my email will stay the same if you have any questions about this stuff. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go to my browser to show you some of these resources. And I'll try to continue to monitor the chat. Oh, I see. I have one more question here. What happens if we put our student loans on forbearance? Okay, that's a really good question, and that reminds me of something that I actually forgot to say. If you chose the Education Award as your end of service award, there will be an option to repay the interest from your loans if they were in forbearance after service. So that's also in the My AmeriCorps portal. I'm not sure if that will be active like the day after your last day or if it takes a little while to show up. There's no time limit, I don't think, on that. So I would have to look into that, but I know that I just did this. Basically, you go into your My AmeriCorps portal. I think it's under the My Education Award piece, and it says request repayment of interest on loans or something like that. And that'll repay the interest on the loans that you put in forbearance. If you choose for some reason not to do that, then the interest has been accruing and your forbearance period should have been your first day to your last day, because usually you use your service letter to request forbearance. So basically you'll have a payment due the next month. And that's something that you would need to discuss with your loan provider in terms of what your monthly payment is and when they're due and all of that. So make sure that if your loans have been in forbearance, that, you know, on your last day or the day after your last day, you check in with your loan provider and see what that's going to look like. Okay. So let me switch over to my browser. Okay, so first, I'm just going to start on VISTA Campus. Hopefully, you all have been making good use of this during your VISTA service. If not, it's not too late. There's still great resources on here. Right now, I am on the VISTA webinars page. And if you scroll down, you can actually see there's a whole chunk of webinars just on life after VISTA. So feel free to browse here. These are going to be more specific about things like non-competitive eligibility. What else? There's things about planning with your supervisor, resume and career advice. So these are all really good resources for the end of your service. Let me just go to the member page. So this will be your home page. It looks a little different. They just updated it recently. But you can see all the benefits of your service under benefits of service. So if you wanted to go to end of service award, here's where the information about that is. And there's lots of links in here too. Okay. So if you have the education award, this is going to be a really good resource. And all of these links are in the PowerPoint, which I'm going to send to you guys. So this is the education award website, or I guess I went a little further than that, but this is what that looks like. And there's resources here. If you go under guidebook for things like taxes, which I mentioned, schools, general terms, there's a section just for VISTA members. But if you go, for example, under schools, matching institutions. Okay, so this is really cool. If you have an education award, there is a list of matching institutions. So these are institutions that provide that accept the Siegel Education Award and provide some additional benefit. So sometimes that's going to be like a percentage of tuition that they're going to pay for because you have a Siegel Education Award. Sometimes it's a dollar amount. But you have to check with each school individually, but that's where you find that list. Okay. So this is something else I mentioned, the AmeriCorps alum website. It's just AmeriCorpsAlum.org. But there's things here like they host online career fairs sometimes. There's a job board. There are webinars. There's resources for the Education Award, grad school fairs. And then if you go to alumni chapters, or I guess you have to go to find your chapter. This is how you can connect with other AmeriCorps alumni in your state. So just following these links. Okay, and then USA Jobs. This is where you go to search for government jobs. So what I would recommend doing is searching by location. And then you can see there's 2,781 government jobs in DC right now, but there are all of these filters on the right-hand side here. So you could search by any of these things that apply to you, but there is one specifically for non-competitive eligibility. It just says Peace Corps and AmeriCorps VISTA alumni. So if you select that, you can see all of the 405 jobs, for example, in DC, where the hiring manager has marked their ad as hiring for Peace Corps and AmeriCorps VISTA alumni. So this is a good resource if you're trying to use that non-competitive eligibility. And I think the webinar on VISTA Campus would be a really good resource for that too, because as you may know, government resumes, federal resumes particularly, are a whole different animal, and there's lots of things that you should know if you're going that route. So that was all of the links that I had pulled up to show you. But if you have any other, does anyone want to see something else that I mentioned that I haven't shown yet, or any other questions before we log off? Like I said, you can always shoot me an email or give me a call afterwards if you think of something later. I'm not seeing any questions right now. I think that was everything I wanted to cover. So basically, in my follow-up, I am going to send this PowerPoint so you have all of those links. I also would recommend that you look at the email that I sent as follow-up to last week's professional branding webinar. You can watch the webinar on YouTube, but I also included in that email some really good, or I think they're really good, resume and cover letter writing guides. So if you are in the thick of applying for positions and getting your resume and your cover letter out there, I would definitely recommend those resources. They're online PDFs, or I guess I downloaded them, so just PDFs. And they give you lots of good examples of good and not so great resumes and cover letters. Allison, okay, so I would check, Allison's asking, she's saying that she requested the VISTA travel request through the My AmeriCorps portal and doesn't have the print and sign form. So I believe that that is something that would be coming from the VMSU directly to you, or you would get some notification. So sometimes VISTA emails go to my junk folder. I would check there. You can always reach out to the VMSU through the hotline. They're an awesome resource. I would have to look into the technicalities of that, but I think that you should have heard directly from the VMSU. So go through your emails, check your junk mail, and if you don't have anything, maybe give the hotline a call would be my advice. Okay, well that was, oh, I see. One more question here. If we want to take advantage of non-competitive status but are going to grad school, can we still do that after grad school? I believe that there is an option to defer your non-competitive eligibility. I don't know about the technicalities of that. So that's another thing that I would recommend reaching out to the DMSU hotline for, or the National Service Hotline, so that you can ask specific questions about your program and the length of it and all of that. I know that point blank, they say that non-competitive eligibility is only awarded for 1 year after, your end of service date. But I believe, don't quote me on this, that there's a way to defer it. So if you're interested in doing that, I would definitely recommend for you to reach out to VISTA directly and get some answers from them. And that hotline number is all over VISTA campus. Just let me know if you can't find it for some reason, if any of you want the hotline number and you can't find it, and I'll send that to you.